I went and looked, there
Yeah,
were
yeah.
5 pairs. I just bought Lowe's, yeah, I mean, I've had it like a year. But, yeah, that's what I'm getting from work.
Yeah.
I had a big old box.
Good.
full.
When I
Yeah.
read about it in the paper, it seemed to cover everything that you would want.
There you go.
Yes, I was really grateful that they didn't get rid of the old pool house.
Yeah.
Again, from a historic.
Everybody here?
Do we have enough? Okay. I think we'll call the meeting to order of the Washington Historic Preservation Commission meeting for Monday, May 18th, 2020. Could we have roll call, please?
Carolyn Witt,
Here.
Steve Struberg,
Here.
Brian Bogue, Rick Hop,
Here.
Danielle Grotwheel, Jamie Holtmeyer, Andrew Clary,
Here.
Tyler King,
Here.
Joe Holtmeyer,
Here.
Greg Scornia,
Here.
Sal Maniaci,
Here.
Tom Nelden.
Okay, will you all please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I would like to thank all you for coming out. Board people, commission people, because it's been a while. And it's exciting to have something important to look at tonight. If anybody has any comments or corrections or additions to the minutes that Jamie sent out, if not, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, new business. Tyler King is now our representative from downtown, which we're very happy to have, yes. And it's great to have, of course, between Rick and I, you also have other people who are into that, but it's really great to have a representative from the downtown organization as part of this team. And if anybody doesn't know, Tyler King is the executive director of Downtown Washington. I apologize, I didn't, just because I know who he is.
His reputation preceded him, so.
Yes, yes, yes. And super dad,
Don't say that. Thank
yeah. Okay, we have a small TIF application.
Yes, which is, to be honest, the main reason we needed to meet. This wouldn't have been one of our quarterly meetings, but I'll give kind of a quick recap of this program because it's not used very often. But as you all are aware, all of downtown is in an active TIF district. Our large TIF districts obviously have to go through quite a bit of process and application and approval from the TIF Commission to get the entire district approved. But in 2012, we integrated this small TIF program to allow our individual property owners and smaller projects benefit from the TIF process. And the way it works is that there are 5 programs, 4 of them can be piggybacked, and then one's kind of a catch-all that they can fit into for different projects that they're doing. It can be from just historic facade, upstairs commercial, upstairs residential, that kind of thing. And if they're making improvements to a property that's in the TIF district, what they can do is turn in the plans, make sure they meet the historical guidelines, go to council for a development agreement, and the way it works is after it's approved, they implement the improvements, they get the project completed, and say that they significantly increase the property value of that building or of that property. There typically would be an increase, obviously, in their property taxes from the assessor. They can turn in their previous tax bill and their new tax bill, and we can rebate 80% of that increase as kind of like an encouragement or really an incentive to get people to renovate their buildings. And the biggest thing is that this is meant to encourage upstairs downtown, to try and get space that isn't being utilized, fully utilized, and get historic buildings to their full advantage. So on this specific application, it's 116 West Front Street. See here in this aerial, or in the street view, Revolution Cycles is currently the tenant on the ground floor, and they actually are the applicant on this. The owner, James Jensen, did sign off on the application, but Joe Ferguson is here as the applicant. And they plan on doing some facade work, improvements to the front of the building, adding a balcony, and then that's one program that they're qualifying for in the small TIF. And then on top of that, there is an apartment that is planned for upstairs. So they got upstairs, second floor residential that qualifies them for an additional program. So there's, and the way the program works, you can max out each program, each project program you can get a certain amount up to, and facades get you up to $40,000 rebate, and then upstairs residential, you can qualify for up to $30,000. So putting those together, you can get up to $70,000 rebated and we get it back to you every year. We have a spreadsheet that we track all of our active projects, and once it hits that cap, they just won't receive any more. The kicker is that this, legally, we cannot offer this program after a TIF district expires. It has to be an active TIF, and this TIF district expires in 2030. So that's kind of the lifespan of this. So for the next 10 years, this project and all of our other small TIFs will be able to take advantage of that until 2030. So I will show you the plans, and then I'll let the applicant kind of get into it in more detail. But you can see here, they plan to, in the apartment, have the living room and the master bedroom each have new doorways where the windows are currently, and then have a new balcony. I am not the architect, but I would almost consider it like a French style balcony. Yes, thank you. That you'd see like in Soulard is really how it jumped out to me.
Right.
But it does match, I think, kind of the existing style that they have down there currently. The awnings will be removed in this photo. They do show an alternate for additional awnings up here as optional awnings that may not be put onto these doors, but they wanted to include that, and we said anything that's changed in the facade, you know, to make sure that you show on this. And there are, there's not enough for everybody, but we can kind of pass them down. This was the applicant brought tonight. It just shows the color, what that will look like.
Thank you.
Should be 3 there. And we can pass them down that way. So you can get a little bit better idea, more so than this black and white one. But lastly, it's just important to know the reason that, you know, a lot of times with these certificates of review, we have to do them, or we can do them via email. Because they're requesting public funds, this triggers it to be mandatory review, mandatory compliance, meaning they cannot move forward with approval from council, nor start turning in receipts until this board issues a certificate of review. So that's what we're asking tonight, certificate of review to approve the improvements to the facade, to the front of the building. The ramp will still stay there as is. Again, there's going to be changes to the interior. We don't necessarily, there are, if you saw in the packet we emailed, there are plans for the layout of that. But again, that's not something this group would typically look at. We are recommending approval of this, and we hope to get it on to the council agenda June 1st.
Excellent. Do you have
Joe
anything
is
you'd like
here.
to add?
I did not actually sound a fine job.
He does. He does a really good job.
Very thorough. You guys see the pictures there if you like. I'm happy to represent Dr. Jansen in this project, and we're hoping that to really kind of enhance downtown a little bit more than the old building was or has been all these years. And moving forward, establish a business in the bottom and the residents up top. I think it would be a great addition for downtown.
Absolutely.
Joe, that's one of the main things that we've pushed in downtown for the last 10 years now, is the second floor units, you know, and put them back to use again. This is a good example. Good for you. I'll make a motion, we approve this.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second with Andrew. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Well, I'm excited. I think this is terrific. It's going to have a beautiful view.
Yes.
And living over that business is not going to rock and roll all night, so that's always good. You are. That's right.
It is his business
And
also.
luckily, I get to be the first tenant that moves in up there.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're gonna see what it's like.
Oh,
nice.
I think you'll like downtown living. I mean,
It's great.
Nobody here lives downtown, do
Yeah, I do. We're neighbors, Joe. Yeah, like, yeah, wait a minute.
I'm at work.
yeah, right. That's right.
No, we're really looking forward to it.
That's great.
We stepped out on the balcony, on the front porch the other day, and my wife looked out, and she said, "So, this is gonna be my front yard, huh?" I said, "Yes, it is.
Say, honey, it's
Little
gonna,
doggies right over there to the park, and
That's right. And no grass to cut. And
have to mow a lick.
No, exactly. And we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
We are, and from more than one hat. As far as downtown goes, as Rick said, we have really been, the Downtown Washington organization has been very active in trying to support upstairs development. And there's another winning scenario, so we thank you. Okay.
Just get the little riverfront trail finished and the bridge.
Have faith, it will come.
This end of it going.
Yes, yes. And get that bridge connected over there to the trail, that will help.
Being done the other day, I actually stopped and talked to the workers over there, and it sounds like it's still gonna be a several month long process at this point, but at least work is being done.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
It's great. Okay, we have a few more things. Update on the city cemetery sign funding?
And I'm sorry, I don't have any updates on this. Actually, Marlon covered the last meeting in this, and she had she reached out to, I'm trying to remember who she reached out to and got a bid for a sign. So I need to check in on this.
Peters? Ziegler?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Peters, that
Yeah,
wasn't it Jim
Peters
Peters?
sign, yeah. She looked into that. And we're actually going through budgeting process right now. That was something I was going to bring up as of right now. Just as a precaution, the city has told our department heads to just basically duplicate your budget. Don't put anything new in there for now, just because we don't know what the economy is going to look like in a couple months or in a year. And any capital permits that were already planned for, obviously still moving forward, like the pool. So what I did was I completely copied our budget from last year, which was already smaller, if you remember, because we didn't have a grant. We
Right.
didn't have matching funds. But we are technically still in our waiting period for the International Shoe Factory anyway. And so we would still be able to add that in once that waiting period's over. But I will put that on my to-do list to check in on that and see what I think I remember it being like $5,000, so.
Yeah,
I apologize, I forgot all about it.
No, that's good. As far as the budget goes, it's as long as we can stay in the game, because I know the city has no idea what the sales tax, which we rely on so heavily. So I imagine everybody's kind of up in the air on monies, if there's any money to be spent and where it needs to be spent. So I have no problem with remaining where we were, even if it was small. We still like to keep a foot in the door so they know we're here. So that's good. As far as the design reviews, we can approve all of these as putting it in the record at one time. These were all design reviews that were issued certificate through approval on the internet, through emails, and they all passed with no anybody having any problems. It included the 216 Elm Street, Beautiful Journey, the 514 West 5th, the 514 formerly Driftwood sign, and you notice that sign was different than what was originally proposed.
That should be Front Street.
It is Front
Oh.
Street, not Fifth Street,
Yep.
yeah, Front Street.
Good catch.
And
What prompted that change, Carolyn?
I think it was because,
Just our initial,
yeah, because it did not receive a review from us. I mean, there
Yeah.
were issues.
So, I
Yeah,
spoke to the
please.
owner, and Ziegler Sign was the applicant on that originally. We had not spoken to the owner and not explained the guidelines and why it was taking so long. So he reached out to me and said, after we canceled that meeting, because at the time, they wouldn't be open by June 1st, because they've been renovating the inside. And he reached out to me and wanted to know what the holdup was. So he had not even been aware of why it was held up. And I said, well, if you take out the electronic message display board, we can approve it, today. Because that's not mandatory anyway. You still get comments, but it's not specifically in there. And he actually didn't say much. He said, okay. And then a couple of 2 weeks passed, and then we get a revised application that it wasn't in there anymore. So,
cool,
took it out.
And it was,
Accomplish something.
yes.
Yeah.
Which was great because we couldn't say no, but we said no, but we couldn't stop it, but at least
Sure.
they paid attention. And I think that's fine. It looks fine.
Yep.
And that was good. 216 West Front, that was draft room formerly Otis Campbell. I noticed that sign was up even before we,
They had two sign contractors, so there was a little bit of a miscommunication there, that whenever Ziegler applied for the vinyl sign, Charlie Doyen had just went down there and hung the sign on his own. So he just got ahead of
that's not
himself.
surprising.
So,
But at the same time, it was an existing,
the infrastructure was.
right, so it wasn't like they, Anyway, 120 West Front Underground Espresso Bar sign.
And the only thing I'll add to that is that they are not done. They will be coming back, so if those are just window vinyls on the door. They did have a backlit sign. Brian owns that building, and so before it even got to us, he told them, change it out. So I'm assuming.
We have a man in an important spot. He
Yeah,
could,
so I'm sure they'll be back and with
yes,
another
that's,
permit.
that's fine. It's exciting something's going in there, and it's so well-named, considering it's in the basement. And the 14 East Front Present Moment Yoga. Peace and all that. That building is amazing down there, that Mraz. It is unrecognizable, which is what you want it to be, but well done. Let me take a motion to approve all of these, to add to the record, so it's official,
I motion we issue.
or add
our
it to the
review-
record.
Add it to the record. Add it to the
Add it to the
record.
record, these were approved.
I'll second.
A second? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Has anyone noticed the facade change on Modern Auto? That's pretty amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I noticed her old building is for sale, so if you know anybody looking for, I'm sure it's nice in there. I mean, that building is unrecognizable from the tavern. It's amazing, so.
Pretty cool on the inside.
And it's, if you have a business, you have all those wonderful windows. I mean, she had really utilized those windows for advertisement, and so it has a lot of potential, if you know of anybody looking for something. We'll be real quick here with old business. There's not much going on these days. Potential grants, I don't think, there's not, again, money is going to be tight all the way around, I think, anywhere. Most conferences have been canceled. I know the National Main Street was to start this weekend, and it's in Dallas, and it canceled. We have not heard about, I don't know, is the Missouri Preservation still meeting in Jeff City the first week in June?
They have not announced if they're canceling that yet or not.
Yeah, that was,
They're kind of waiting, as the state conference is also up in the air right now, too.
yes. So that's probably the next conference. I had not planned to go to that, but it's in Jeff City, and it's Missouri Historic Preservation. And then the Main Street State meeting was in Kansas City, and that was second week,
Still up in the air right now.
the last week in July.
July, right.
So I think, and I know this has nothing to do with us, but I know as far as like the Town and Country Fair is waiting to see what the state does with the state fair. So we're all in a state of waiting. Curb appeal and creating new history, there is not much. The budget report, do you have anything?
Yeah, kind of just
I
reiterate.
thank you for
yeah, we're
keeping
just-
us in the loop,
so-
and we appreciate that.
So I can't imagine we'll get, just carrying over what we used last year, so.
Right. And we're still not on hold for the plaques, and the Calvin Theater is always there, but never going anywhere. Our next meeting, I noticed, isn't until August. So if something comes up, like this small TIF came up, we may have to meet, but otherwise, I think we've been very successful. It looks like the majority of the commissioners respond to the emails, and we're very grateful for that when Jamie sends something out, you get back to us. And I always rely on a lot of the comments that we get from our fellow commissioners, who often bring a point of view that I don't see. So I'm aiming that over here, and he's the expert. Is there any other business?
Yeah, I got an apology to make, I guess. The church got a new sign put up, and Ziegler did the job, and I thought it was going to be brought over to this commission, and never was. Sign's up. I'm going to put a light on it, but Just sorry about not bringing it
Were you
forth.
talking about the one on Main Street? We
Yeah.
saw one of them.
Yeah, I think the one on Main Street we
Oh,
saw.
the big,
Yeah, but that was a while ago. That was,
okay.
yeah.
All right, I didn't, I guess I didn't.
Well, I was gonna say, I thought maybe they applied and I forgot to send it to you guys, but okay, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, you started saying that. I was like, no, we.
okay.
Yeah.
You're covered.
this-
All right,
Accept your apology.
well,
Apology denied.
Oh, no. Since
I'm
since I
just
have
covering my,
a few minutes, I don't know if anybody was aware of, read in the paper, the planning and zoning meeting. They brought an issue to planning and zoning, the owners of Elijah McLean's, about changing to C3 zoning from C2. And C3 is what our historic downtown is. It's for high-density urban historic area because it doesn't require, most new buildings require a certain amount of parking per size or residence. C3 does not, because if you're putting an apartment on a historic building upstairs, you don't want somebody to have to buy the building next door and knock it down to have parking. So C3 is very distinct to our historic district. And the owners were attempting to change the zoning because they were doing things to the business which would expand a number of people who would attend, like a tent, a 200-person tent, and that would throw out the 47 parking spaces?
Oh, I don't.
Whatever it
Square
is.
footage, yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's based on the square footage. So it was brought up to planning and zoning, and I am on planning and zoning, and I got a little rabid and stated that they were not high density. They are 2.9 acres, I think. And that was not, they were not contiguous to the existing well, we're only a block away. No, you're not, you know. So we need to watch that, we as a group, because it has a specific designation, and that's what it's used for. And we don't want it misused, I feel. And
oh yeah, I know a lot about that.
and it was withdrawn from,
was.
I was going to go to city council tonight in case it was supposed to come up, but it was withdrawn. Is that my understanding?
Postponed, yes.
Postponed.
Yep.
So,
So Carolyn, really quick, just for my own brain, you can only become C3 if you're in a historic district, is that?
No, so council can approve a C3 just like any other rezoning.
Okay.
It's just in the definition of, in our code, it's got an intent and purpose of the C3 district, and it's for our downtown historic area. And so, like, Rhine River, when it was redeveloped, got designated C3 because it was a planned district, and they knew what that plan was gonna look like, and they knew C3 was appropriate for what they wanted to do. It's not technically contiguous because the shoe factor, corn cob pipe factory.
Pipe factory.
It's still industrial.
Right.
Still zone industrial. So that's why there's a gap there. But there's no necessarily boundary in our code where it says you have to be within this area to be C3, but it is meant to be in that downtown historic area, per se.
Okay.
So,
and while there's no question that, it's a historic building, but it seemed to be targeted at, to increase their parking to get, I mean, it did not fly. I felt it was misuse of that, so.
yeah, I think there are other alternatives that could go through. to,
Exactly. And all of the
find parking
things they talked about a lot of plans that they could expand parking along Stafford Street. We could expand, which, back when I was on the council, we had talked about initially if we could expand the parking that's along between the railroad tracks and Front Street. There's room to go further, but you have to work with the railroad. But I think that was in the original plan, which is why that area is fenced off, and it's, and that's fine. But none of that was needed the C3 zoning to do.
Right.
Their C2 zoning would have been,
It's mainly off-street parking, correct, Sal? That C3, you don't have to provide that off-street parking.
Right.
So if you're not C3, you've got to provide those parking spaces on your property, not on the street.
That's correct.
And-
That I knew. I misinterpreted something. I thought it had to be in a historic district to get C3 designation.
no. And they were presenting it that night as if it's a historic building, so it should be C3. Well, when I called them to task on that, they said, that's not what we meant. So whatever, but the idea is that just because you're historic doesn't mean. And the neighbors were very concerned because if there was no required parking for them to provide, they would bleed into the neighborhood.
Yep.
And that was going to be hard.
That was tops on the list.
So,
Since
anyway.
it was declined by planning and zoning, does it take a supermajority, or does it take a supermajority when there's a petition?
It takes a supermajority at council. They asked to meet with us, they just haven't picked a time yet that will, because they could keep C2 and go to Board of Adjustment and ask for a variance if they wanted to. They don't have to go to C3, and we even, if they're coming up with all these parking solutions with Stafford and extending Front Street and donating right-of-way and all this, that can all be done without having to get a rezoning. So that's what we're recommending.
And it was recommended, the city's recommendation to planning and zoning was not to change it, which is what I agreed with. So,
Well, I went by there right before I came here, there's places where they could stair step the parking up that hill.
yes, yes,
Wouldn't be cheap, but they could be done.
right. So, but anyway, I thought, I used this hat when I got on my soapbox, because I said, okay, I have a foot in another, speaking as a member of the Historic Preservation Commission, I totally am against this and cannot support it, and so you all should know, I'm doing that to you guys, I'm taking you with me. Okay, is there any other business? Well, I want you all to stay well, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
In August.
That's right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, and thank you.
Thank you. Happy Memorial Day, everybody.
Absolutely. I got out the red,
Doesn't
white,
feel
and
like it.
blue.